What's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the What's Good Games podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Renee, joined by Christine Steimer.
Hello.
Brittany Brombacher.
Hello.
And a very special guest is here with us in studio. Naomi Kyle is here.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming down and joining us. You know, me and the girls talk a lot about how we have so many cool friends that work in the video games business, but we haven't really gotten an opportunity to get many people on the show. In fact, I think Mary Kish is the only other guest we've had.
That's true.
Oh my gosh.
You're guest number 2.
Yes.
Woo!
Number 2.
So Alexa Ray is not here this week. She's still dealing with some ongoing medical issues. She sends her regrets, but she will be appearing in some Patreon exclusive content that is going live. Did it go live already?
It is live.
So if you want to get in on that exclusive content, you can head on over to patreon.com/whatsgoodgames. Ladies, for just $1, people can get in on the action. Britt, what can people get for that $1?
They can get a video of us drawing dicks on things.
That's true.
That
Not
was
safe for
last
work.
month.
Not safe for
Or was it
work.
this one? I don't know where
So
we
if
are
you want to watch some content that isn't safe for children,
I do.
The
I
content that
definitely
is
do.
safe for children, this month we painted pumpkins.
Aww.
that is safe. That's true.
Family friendly.
I mean,
So-
it's us, so it's probably not family
Well,
friendly.
I was going to say they're all really cute. Alexa, Andrea, and Simon made really cute pumpkins.
I
Mine's
saw
kind
them.
of the abomination
there.
one, which unfortunately is not on set right now. Makes me kind of sad.
Would you like me to get it for you?
I would love it.
Get that pumpkin.
Let's get it on set.
Yeah, girl, look at that pumpkin.
Oh my god, that is the best thing ever.
Thank you. Now, Naomi, you're an artist. You appreciate that, right?
I do. I
Thank you.
very much love
Thank you.
this.
Thank you very much.
It's everything about a pumpkin that I love.
So, for people who are listening who have not seen a photo of said pumpkin, it is quite a large, tall pumpkin, you know, one of those vertical ones, and it's got 2 large eyes stuck on it, and I kind of want to call them googly eyes, but they're not. They're more like
than that.
they're more like cat eyes.
They are cat
But
eyes.
the really interesting part is it's got bushy eyebrows painted on. It's got some kind of large red wound underneath
Oh,
of
that's
its
what that
right
is.
eye. And then there's something with some kind of zombie mouth happening.
And it's like eating a furry thing.
I think I can make out a nose. And the best part, Britt, turn it around.
Oh yeah.
It's got a butt tramp stamp, which is kind of in the middle of its back, but we can call it a tramp stamp anyway. It's fine.
It's a confused pumpkin.
There
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
if you are watching the video, there is another T.
There's a tiny little T, so you don't know what kind of butt it is. You have to take a guess.
Exactly.
Love
But that was a fun video, and you can watch that whole painting process if you are our Patreon subscriber at the $1 level and above. So thank you to everybody who is supporting us. But we will be talking to Ms. Kyle about all of her escapades in the world of creative Twitch streams and video games a little bit later on in the 3rd segment, but we want to talk a little bit about the news. Say, Naomi, you are on arguably the biggest news show in video games.
Yeah, girl.
What's the name of that show again?
It's pretty. Oh, this is called the Daily Fix.
That's
Pretty
just
big.
the daily fix.
It's just a little show I do over on IGN.
At IGN. Yeah, no, I do the Daily Fix. So we actually did talk about a lot of the news we're going to be covering today.
So the first story, what a weird week for news.
Super strange.
So some weeks, as you are acutely aware, nothing. It's like a desert out there for news. You're scraping to find something to talk about.
Tumbleweed. just
Other
kinda-
weeks,
Yep.
it just kind of falls right on your lap. And this
Yeah.
is kind of one of those weeks. So the first big story we want to talk about was kind of shocking to me and kind of sad as well, a little bit of both. Electronic Arts announced they will be shutting down their Visceral Games studio. So I'm going to read a little bit of an excerpt from the article that Polygon wrote up about this story. So they are making major changes to the team's in-development Star Wars project. Visceral has been working on an action-adventure game set in the Star Wars universe in some form since 2013, when EA and Disney announced a multi-year game deal. It's been described as a story-based, linear adventure in the style of Naughty Dog's Uncharted series. But it looks like EA is making a, quote, significant change to that title. EA's Executive Vice President Patrick Soderlund made a statement on their website, and it reads, "Throughout the development process, we have been testing the game concept with players, listening to the feedback about what and how they want to play, and closely tracking fundamental shifts in the marketplace. It has become clear that to deliver an experience that players will want to come back to enjoy for a long time to come, we needed to pivot the design. We will maintain the stunning visuals, authenticity in the Star Wars universe, and focus on bringing a Star Wars story to life. Importantly, we are shifting the game to be a broader experience that allows for more variety and player agency, leaning into the capabilities of our Frostbite engine and reimagining central elements of the game to give players a Star Wars adventure of greater depth and breadth to explore. So this is really kind of a major bummer, especially since they went on to say that they will be delaying this game until the launch of it into EA's 2019 fiscal year, which runs from April 2018 through March 2019. So, that was its original launch date. It's been pushed back indefinitely. So we know that we won't see this game probably before March 2019, which is quite a ways away. So, the last kind of nugget of information I want to put out there is that they followed up and asked EA about Amy Hennig's future on the project and at EA, and they said, we're in discussions with Amy about her next move, which is not a good sign.
No.
So, wow, I did not see this coming at all.
This was a gut punch.
Such a bummer.
And especially after what happened with Star Wars 1313, like the way they were just like, well, this looks awesome. Too bad.
Yeah.
None for you.
Yeah. Star Wars has a bad past with just development hell, like with all their games. And that's a really good example. And now we have another one. It's super disappointing. Plus, like, what does that mean for games in the future, like AAA titles telling a story? Like, are we just not down for that anymore? Like, what is the audience saying?
Yeah, that's what I thought was super weird about this. He made it sound like it was shaping up to be a single player, like, linear campaign, as if it's a bad thing.
Yeah, and there are many bummer things about this. Like, I love Visceral, I love the Dead Space series, and I'm really sad that we probably will never see that again. But when it comes to Star Wars, that's what I want. I know everyone loves, but not everyone, but a lot of people love Battlefront. They love the multiplayer aspect of it. But for me, I want that single player Amy touched Star Wars experience.
Me too.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, Sammy, it was like, that's what people wanted, I think. I mean, we're getting the action from Battlefront 2 coming out. And I know that has a campaign in it as well, but I don't think it's going to be the Amy campaign.
It's not going to be the same story-based, like, Uncharted type of Star Wars game.
Yeah,
which is what they were going for.
What's funny is that, so they released Battlefront, and everyone was like, where's my single player? Yeah. And so they were like, okay,
that was
here's
the main complaint.
Right? Yeah. And then they're like, okay, well, here's your single player and your better multiplayer. But also we're canning the single player, which is or not canning it. That's the wrong term. But like, now we're going to change this thing that was going to be mostly single player and making it multiplayer. And I'm like, I think you're confused. Like, I think you maybe don't. Right? Doesn't it feel? Because you have that experience. You have that long tail experience with Battlefront. So what other type of long tail Star Wars experience are you trying to get?
So you've already done that. Like, why? Yeah.
Right. So I think a lot of discussion that's been happening over the last couple of days since this announcement went live has really centered around the idea of games as live services, and more importantly around microtransactions, and how so many of these large publishers seem to be shoehorning in microtransactions and in-game content specifically to increase revenues from games. And clearly from the outrage over the microtransactions in a single base experience like Middle-earth Shadow of War, I'm sure EA has been kind of monitoring that situation, going, well, we clearly need to make more money from this game because our shareholders are really liking how much money, because EA reported that they made over $1 billion in 2016 from in-game content. And so, from additional content, I think was the exact wording. But that to me kind of smacks of them looking at it going, okay, so we need to make more content that we can sell. Can we do that
for a longer period of time?
Right.
Like, it's the ongoing experience.
Exactly.
It's like what Blizzard has banked on for their
totally. And I had this conversation with Greg earlier this week on Games Daily, and we kind of brought up, I think, or maybe it was one of the audience members brought up, well, maybe it wasn't around microtransactions. Maybe there was some kind of drama at the studio, because apparently in Jason Schreier's book, that when he talks about Naughty Dog, There are some documented incidences of what happened and what led to, her leaving Naughty Dog and some of the things that went down in the development team there. I haven't read the book yet, so I wasn't sure what they were referring to, but I find it hard to believe that EA would invest so much money into this project. I mean, the burn rate for her studio alone must have been crazy to just walk away because of some drama. I have to imagine it's them going, we need to make more money on this project.
Yeah, I mean, 3.5 years of development, that's, oof.
It's either that or there was drama, but drama in the sense that they weren't concepting fast enough, they weren't getting it done fast enough, and the game wasn't where it needed to be, but it was at a point where another studio could take it over and make it into something else, which...
Right, so I'm glad you brought that up. So there is another studio. In the statement that EA put out on their website, they said a development team from across EA worldwide studios will take over development of this game, led by a team from EA Vancouver that has already been working on the project. Our Visceral studio will be ramping down and closing, and we're in the midst of shifting as many of the team as possible to other projects and teams at EA.
Because that's the key. Like, yes, you can talk about how much EA wants to Scrooge McDuck it even further, right? Like, they just really want their pile of money. That is definitely a component here, I think. But for them to decide to close the studio, like, that's a big decision. And so, I mean, it's one thing to be like, well, the project isn't working. You know what? We're going to, like, shift it over here. But to be like, you know what? We're done here?
And what's really odd about it is that I don't recall another publisher shutting down a studio mid-project. It's common for these studios to be shuttered in between projects or maybe after a giant project launches and they don't have another thing on their slate that they're working on. But like in the middle of development to just say we're closing it down is like really troubling.
There's definitely, I really wish I could be like a fly on the wall there because something odd is happening. Like that's just a weird, number one, it's a weird statement. And like, so
it's weird that fan feedback was that important, and like, who did they use?
Well, it wasn't.
To provide
That's
that
what
feedback?
that's what PR said would be the best way to
maybe just to like, to put it together to make some sense of it. I don't know what happened there exactly, but now I'm kind of like, what did happen?
That's just it. And it's like, there's a lot of speculation, a lot of conversations happening. And if you kind of dissect that PR speak, right? It's like, okay, if you look into this game wasn't going to make us enough money being a linear story-driven experience. So we have to do something, probably incorporating multiplayer. I mean, but if you look at that statement, there's not a heck of a lot of hints. There's hints, but you don't know where they're going. Right. So maybe they're going to take elements from, I'm being very optimistic here, taking elements from what Amy has done with the game and maybe adding some other things to it. Maybe we'll kind of get that little touch.
They did say they're keeping a lot of the assets and a lot of what they had already previously built for, I think, what EA Vancouver is going to take over and Worldwide Studios.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean, I think what that means more of like is we're keeping the art because art's expensive.
Yeah.
I would guess, but I don't know. Star Wars 1313 had a lot of art made for it as well. And I saw some pretty amazing gameplay demos that looked pretty finished. I mean, obviously they needed some polish and things like that, but
you think after 3 years too, maybe there's like something
right
there that they can keep.
Sorry.
I
didn't mean to. I thought you were done. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
just keep an apology. Just keep apologizing.
Don't get in an apology fest with a Canadian.
I was gonna say a vertical slice is a much different, like a gameplay demo versus actually having.
Oh, that's true.
Game, yeah.
But what I saw wasn't a vertical slice.
Oh, you didn't?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it wasn't playable. It was like a walkthrough, like dev demo.
Oh, okay. There's also another component. I don't know. So Kotaku followed up. I saw in an updated article that Kotaku had acquired an email that basically confirms that Amy Hennig is completely off the project. So, them saying we don't know what her next move, or we're discussing what her next move is, like that also leads to question, like kind of what you said, where maybe there was an issue with, or what you had mentioned too about Naughty Dog, like maybe there was an issue with how Amy Hennig handled it. I don't know. Like, what is that?
Yeah, it would be.
Why is she completely off the project? Like, that seems like a completely.
Yeah, it would be interesting
different
to know if
story.
it was something that was driven from her end or if she caught wind or found out about them wanting to shut the studio and move her to the Vancouver office to
what
continue
I
development
thought
there.
they
And she
would be
was like,
doing.
wait, what? No way. And maybe she got really upset, as she should, because she's been working with that team for quite some time. And if EA
maybe
kind
she-
of pulled
it
the
was
rug
just she was
out from
done.
under her,
Yeah.
you know, I would get her being mad. But I don't know. I would love to talk to Amy about it, but I doubt she's going to talk to me or anybody else
I was
about
about to
it.
say, I'm sure she's gonna have to sign some extensive legal documents.
That
to
would
say
make
she
sense.
Well,
did
in
it.
about 3 years, 4 years, we can all jump back to this conversation.
Yeah, I was
Be
about
like,
to
now we
say.
know what actually happened.
I think the most tragic part is this was the one Star Wars game of everything EA said that they were working on between Respawn and DICE and this game that I was so excited for because listen, like I like Star Wars, but I'm not a Star Wars junkie, you know, like I don't need to like have everything Star Wars all the time, but this game, I was like an Amy Hennig written game that's a single player experience done by Visceral. I was like so jazzed for this, and it's just like
Yeah.
so sad it's not going to come out now.
Yeah.
Or if it does, it's going to be multiple years before we see it.
Yeah, and I've
And a
heard
completely different game for all we know.
when I was talking about, I had tweeted out like, oh my god, now first 1313, now this one's getting canceled. People are like, the game's not canceled, it's whatever, and I'm like,
It's not
no,
Amy's.
the game we wanted was canceled.
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you
Completely
realize this,
changing.
but
It's
it's not going to
refocusing.
exactly like refocusing is PR speak for we've canned that. We're gonna
Not happening.
take the assets, maybe some of them, and like make it into a different game, and that's not the game we wanted or signed up for. Now, granted, I'm curious to see what you guys think about, because I think a lot of people have thrown around the term like Destiny Star Wars.
Yeah, that was being said a lot as
Yep.
well.
I
And-
saw that in a bunch of conversations. Well, clearly Activision has kind of, you know, put their flag in the sand to be like, we own that space. We have created like a share world shooter that everybody loves and clearly makes a lot of money for them. And I wouldn't be surprised if EA is looking at it going, well, we could make something like that. We have that kind of development money.
Well,
and
look
we
at
have the
Anthem,
IP that
too.
would
Yeah.
actually drive people to the game. Not that obviously a lot of people play Destiny, but
Yeah.
Star Wars is a much bigger brand than Destiny. I don't think anybody would argue against that.
But but it's weird because the thing that makes Destiny great is the gunplay, and very few other devs can do that as well as Bungie does. So I would be curious to know like what is EA Vancouver's pedigree in that
Lightsaber
department.
play.
We're just gonna deflect
Sound
bullets.
effects.
Vroom, vroom. Do you need to hire us for some sound effects? We got it.
We are great at it. We should definitely be hired.
But the thing that's interesting to me when you guys were talking about like, you know, games as service, I do think EA is one of those companies that chases trends, and they chase them hard and they fall fast.
Yeah,
they
it's true.
chased Facebook games hard. I know this because I worked there.
Hey, I remember the Minions game, the Minions mobile game that they did.
Yeah, so like they're a company that's like, this is the thing, go all in, and
all
then
in.
as soon as that bubble bursts, they're like,
they're
whoop,
looking for the
track it back.
fast dollar versus like the long term. Like, you know, you're building like now this kills any hopes for like a lot of people who are fans of not only Star Wars but EA, like who were hopeful for this game. Like you've kind of lost that audience. Like now you have to regain our trust in some way. So
Absolutely.
it's definitely an interesting and yeah, they're just chasing, it seems like, the money and whatever, you know, long-term income they can guarantee, because these kind of games are kind of, I mean, it just seems like a step in a direction where they're like, this is, you know, money that's going to be ongoing, and we're not going to have to, you know, dish out a story and like have it maybe fail, because it's story-based games sometimes can do that, and they're not always a safe bet.
Yeah, I
So-
agree. It's kind of interesting now, you know, that we know what EA's motives are, making money. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
To see how Anthem works out too.
Yeah,
to see, you
that's
know, if they're
also very
going that
telling.
Destiny route, like is Anthem going to be very Destiny route as well?
It's see, that's
Definitely
the,
felt
I was
that way.
having this conversation with somebody earlier this week about Anthem and how it could be a Destiny killer, and I said I don't think that's ever going to happen because I love BioWare. We all love BioWare in this room, right? They make great games. You know what they don't do well? Shooting. They
Yeah,
make great
that's true.
stories, great
Shooters,
narrative
yeah.
arcs, and they make amazing characters. And the combat's okay. It's passable. It's fun, but is it a solid first person shooting mechanics? No.
No.
So I mean,
Third person
Well, it's hard,
anyway,
yeah.
right?
Right.
But Bungie versus BioWare when it comes to shooting, You know, if you're comparing
those, but then also you look at the story. It's like they have the thing the other one needs.
This is why they should team up.
They each have their own
B
strengths.
squared. B squared.
That's it.
Make a new studio.
Oh my god!
Make
All right, bring in
babies.
those dollars, please.
Please make babies.
We will
Make
kickstart
babies.
this. We will Indiegogo you. Let's go. Let's go.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next story, which is kind of an interesting one because they kind of, I don't want to say backtracked, but they put out a statement saying that they're not using this. So I'm referring to Activision researched using matchmaking tricks to sell in-game items. So Rolling Stone broke this story this week, which I thought was, I tweeted, wow, so gross was my first reaction. So let me read to you what the story is. So Activision was granted a patent this month for a system it uses to convince people in multiplayer games to purchase items for a game through microtransactions. But Activision tells Glixel, Glixel is the gaming branch of Rolling Stone, but it appeared on rollingstone.com for clarification, that the technology is not currently in any games. So, Activision's statement, which I'm trying to decide if I should read that now or later. I'll read it now. It says, this was an exploratory patent filed in 2015 by an R&D team, so it's a research and development team, working independently from our game studios, an Activision spokesperson told Glixel. It has not been implemented in-game. Bungie also confirmed separately to Glixel that the technology is not being used in Destiny 2. So what is this technology? It's a system and method for driving microtransactions in multiplayer video games, which was filed as a patent and granted on October 17th, according to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. So the patent details how multiplayer matches are configured, specifically how players are selected to play with one another. The process used by Activision involves a computer looking at a wide variety of factors, including skill level, internet latency, availability of friends, and other things. It goes through a system to first soft reserve a slot in a game for a player and then assign the player to the same match. For example, in one implementation, the system may include a microtransaction engine that arranges matches to influence game-related purchases. For instance, the microtransaction engine may match a more expert or marquee player with a junior player to encourage the junior player to make game-related purchases of items possessed and used by the marquee player. That junior player may wish to emulate the marquee player by obtaining weapons or other items used by the marquee player. So the patent goes on to explain some other similar situations, but I think you kind of get the gist of how gross this is.
The devil.
It's important to note that in 2016, Activision Blizzard said it earned $3.6 billion from in-game sales, up from 2015's $1.6. So they earned an additional $2 billion in in-game sales from 2015 to 2016. And we wonder why microtransactions are everywhere.
Everyone's looking at that pie going, I want a slice.
Exactly.
One more part of that I want to add that you didn't talk on. In a particular example, the junior player may wish to become an expert sniper in the game, as determined by their player profile. The microtransaction engine may match the junior player with a player that is highly skilled sniper in the game.
That part was confusing to me. Like, as determined by the player profile, I'm like, what does that mean? You're just using sniper rifles more often than not, and therefore the game determines that you really want to be a sniper. And then
all that data is available to them. So the other half of what you read there, it says, in this manner, the junior player may be encouraged to make game-related purchases, such as a rifle or other items used by the marquee player, meaning the sniper player. It's the really... like the immediate, like, this is gross part is, wow, you're tricking people into buying things. Wow, you're intentionally putting high-level players with junior players where they're going to fail because you've designed it for them to fail. And then because they have failed, they will see, in order for me to succeed, I have to buy the thing to succeed. That's so gross on so many levels. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
See, the weird thing to me is, like, I wouldn't be grossed out by this if it was mostly a cosmetic thing.
No.
Oh, we saw that if it worked like this instead. If it worked like, hey, we saw in the store that you looked at this shotgun skin and then you didn't buy it, and then we're matchmaking you, and then with somebody who happens to own said shotgun skin, and we put it in there, and so then you look at it and you're like, oh, it does look really cool in the game.
Yeah.
I'll buy it. I'm actually
As a
okay with that.
display, you're
It's
just-
kind of
yeah.
like a billboard or like one of those ads
Yeah,
that follows you
totally.
around on the internet because you looked at a thing once, God help you.
Or it heard
You
your
will see
voice.
it for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
It listens to you, apparently. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like online matchmaking, right? The whole point is to like test your skills against
It's
players.
it's just about like playing the game with somebody who's equal.
Right.
So
Right.
why
Yeah.
are you changing that? Please don't mess with that.
And
Yeah, thankfully they say they haven't implemented it. And I do think if they implemented it the way it is described right here, it would break the game because, as you were saying, a junior player, I don't know that this would work to get a junior player to buy the shinier gun. It will get some people for sure. But if you're going to have such a miserable experience getting murdered all of the time.
I mean, have you played Call of Duty recently?
No.
That's exactly what it is right now. As a self-described junior player in Call of Duty, my experience in the recent beta, and thankfully they didn't have microtransactions turned on their beta like Battlefront 2 did. Oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that. But I found it very difficult to keep up because everybody else who had been playing longer than I had better guns than me. And I started out with the basic gun and the basic class, and there was just no way that I could compete with this like derpy gun with iron sights when everybody else had like reticle scopes and things like that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if I could buy my way into better guns, I probably would consider doing that if I was interested in continuing to play the game. But important to know, in the story about the patent, they said this is not restricted just to shooters. The patent applies to all types of games that Activision and Blizzard publish.
Cool.
Man.
Yeah,
Cool,
it's
cool,
like,
cool.
you know, I'm all for the player choice. If you want to buy those things and make yourself good through buying things, that's your decision as an adult. You go on with your bad self. You do what you want to do. But it's like, if you have all these fancy algorithms and the technology to do this, why not make fair matchmaking? Like, you know, pair the people who have bought things together and pair the people who haven't together. Use all of your sneaky squirrel skills to make matchmaking fair. And I know there's not money incentivized with that, but if you're making all these billions of dollars that you're saying, come on.
How
You're
many
good.
pools
You're
full of
good.
gold
But
coins
seriously.
can you have?
No, when they make more, they just want more, and that's the really frustrating part about where we're at right now, and why the topic of microtransactions and in-game content is so hotly contested. And clearly, like when you think about a shooter with in-game purchases that does matchmaking, Overwatch is so huge for Activision right now, and Activision Blizzard. They just announced that they hit 35 million global players.
It's crazy.
You know,
Yeah.
and
launching
it's
a
sad.
whole-
But that's
League
all
for it.
cosmetic.
Yeah.
That's
No,
and that,
which is
but maybe-
totally fine.
But we don't know if it's always going to be only cosmetic.
I don't.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's
I
the
have
crappy
faith
part.
in
And I-
Blizzard.
yeah, I have faith that they'll be transparent.
Yeah.
Like, but you never know.
Activision's statement is just a
Companies
little,
will do
I don't
things.
want to say shady, but it's a little confusing because they say this happened in 2015. Is it because, you know, now they're making so much money? Like, you would think maybe they'd say, hey,
There's a
this
correlation.
yeah,
Please
this
explain yourself.
this happened in 2015 back when we were testing microtransaction models. We have learned that this is not necessary. We no longer have plans to implement this in our products.
Do you want a job in PR for Activision?
No,
That was pretty good.
I mean, and then you look at the thank you. I look on the flip side of it, and it's like, you know, they're a business, and they just want to make more and more money, like you were saying. So how it's fucking tricky.
Yeah. And it's so like businesses, that's how they grow is, you know, they check the profit margin, and that's their only goal ever, like a company. I feel like I've been an advocate for like companies should have it split 50-50 where it's not just about profit, but it's about how well can you pay your employees, how much of a like good life can you
Quality
provide
of
these
life.
people, quality of life. Like you there's a value in companies being a part of our world. Why don't they, you know, also help the world in the way that government does, you know? But I'm taking it too political.
No, you're not.
No.
I think
It's always
if,
been in the back of my mind.
That's good.
no, if companies have the financial means to do so, absolutely. Unfortunately,
Should be-
not all companies are sadly EA or Activision and have the the
means
bandwidth.
to do that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But
exactly.
it should be a measurement, or it should be like something, you know, I don't know, in your group of people who invested in the company that, you know, oh, look what we did this year. We were able to pay our employees this such and such, you know.
Instead, they
amount of
just take a
money.
bonus check and they laugh and run away.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually the case. I had an interesting conversation, well, not really a conversation, more of an exchange on Twitter with somebody who brought up King and how Activision Blizzard acquired King and how this kind of
I forgot
smacks
about that.
of King's doing and not really, Activision. And I got to thinking, I was like, of course. I mean, who is the king of the microtransaction in the mobile world? Candy Crush, right? Like they're
Yeah.
huge. There's a reason why that game has made billions of dollars, and it's because of in-game transactions. And it would only make sense that they would bring that structure and that algorithm or the code or whatever kind of tech behind that item over to regular console and PC games. I mean, I hope not, because we pay $60 usually for a console or PC game, and I don't really want to pay in-game transactions constantly like you do in mobile. But
We're already there.
I mean, we're not there to
We're
the
not to
extent
the-
that
yeah.
you're constantly being asked to click the paywall button
my
as you are in mobile
God,
games.
I would just murder everyone within a 10-foot radius, which would be nobody because I live alone. But
It's pretty bad in mobile games these days that
I spend a lot in Fallout Shelter. I'm not gonna lie.
hey, listen, I on this show talked about when I played The Hobbit Kingdoms of Middle Earth, and I spent quite a pretty penny
Yeah.
on that mobile game as well. And if Alexa Ray was here, she would talk about how she recently spent $40 on Fire Emblem Heroes.
40 extra dollars.
40
Have
extra
you-
additional dollars, and we
Have
got
you heard-
Takumi. Is that who she got?
Takumi,
Yeah.
yeah. Have you heard about my Pokemon Go spending?
Oh my gosh, no.
Okay,
I
don't.
probably should.
No, it's
Tell
it's
her.
fine, It's
Tell
fine.
her.
Multiple
moment-
hundreds of dollars. I won't make her name the
wonder how
actual
many.
like more than 500, but less than 1,000.
Less than 900, more than 700. We'll just leave it at that.
Let's narrow the window a little bit.
But anyway, no,
Um,
it's just tricky. It's like I don't even play online games, but I'm getting like fired up thinking about it because it just seems so gross, like you were saying, to manipulate your online component to make more money. And it's like, I know you're a business and you have to make money, but at some point it's like you have to have that split, like you were saying, Naomi. Like, how do you please the masses, but also like sit on your big gold piles at the end of the day? Because this is it's
To
just
make your
so,
shareholders happy.
and that statement,
Yeah.
that's such a bad statement. They need a new statement.
They
they definitely need a new
Something
statement,
needs
yeah.
to be touched.
it
Changed
seems like
about that. Yeah.
that honestly that model probably wouldn't do badly in like an Asian market because pay to win is actually a lot more accepted there. I just don't think it would ever work in North America. People would not be down for that.
Mhm.
That's true. Well, at least in the Chinese market, like the roll rates are public knowledge, so people might be more okay with spending money on loot boxes and microtransactions because they know exactly what they're getting. Well, not exactly, but at least they
know
see
the
what the odds are. Whereas here in North America, that's not a legal requirement. So when you buy a loot box, you don't know what the roll is going to be, if it's going to be 1 in 20, 1 in 100, or 1 in 1,000.
Dear RNGesus, for Christmas this year, I would like this special gun.
Someone needs to drop RNGesus for us. Please.
If you are listening or watching and you have artistic skill and you would like to create a mock-up of what RNGesus looks like, please send it to us on Twitter, on Facebook, or at contact@whatsgoodgames.com.
I assume you know of RNGesus, Naomi. Or
I
do you
don't.
not? Okay, so
But I'm assuming it's Jesus related.
it's basically
I know
so
of Jesus.
the term RNGesus comes from RNG, random number generator. So like whenever you roll a loot box or anything in a game, and it's like a dice roll essentially, that's RNG. And
But you
so
call it
you
Jesus
call it praying to
'Cause you're like,
RNGesus
yes,
because you're hoping that the
please,
dice
RNGesus.
rolls in your favor, basically.
Love it. Okay. Cool. So yeah, we should definitely get emote of that or something.
Yeah, help us out,
Oh,
friends.
yeah.
That'd be
Help
cool.
us out. Another story I wanted to talk about because I found it particularly interesting was Sony is publishing Nintendo Switch and PC games under a new label. Sony Music Entertainment sent out a press release earlier this week, and they have launched a new label called Unties or Unties.
I said unties in my reporting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't
unties
know.
just sounds like undies.
I was
It
about to
does.
say that. It does sound like undies.
Whose upcoming projects include a game titled Tiny Metal that's coming to Nintendo's hybrid console, the Switch he's referring to, and PC and PS4. Unties has so far revealed 3 more projects, 1 for PS4 and 2 listed for PC TBA, hinting they could come to other platforms later on. Sony Music says the label has been set up to unearth high-quality indie titles and utilize SME's vast entertainment business wisdom in order to expose them to as many consumers as possible. It went on to say it intends to free creators from the myriad ties that bind them when it comes to publishing their games and make free, limitless publishing a reality.
So yeah, it is
yeah, like that's never
unties
gonna happen.
and not unties.
So,
Yeah.
okay,
Has to
first
be.
thought, OMG, why is Sony publishing video games under their music label when they have an entire publishing division? First thing. Second thing, free limitless publishing a reality. I'm going to get into why that's a bad thing in a second. But first, who would have ever thought a music group would be publishing video games? Naomi, you have some insight into the music business. You've recorded a hit song.
Yeah, no, come on, guys.
Yeah, girl.
I'm definitely no Timberland or anything. But I guess I have some side into the music industry. I don't think this makes sense. I don't think that Sony Music should be publishing games, but I think it's cool. I still think it's cool that things are merging. Like Sony's now working with Nintendo, and you never know. Maybe Sony and Microsoft will someday work together.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good, but it's still kind of cool to see the evolution, the ebbs and flows of the industry.
Sure.
Do you think they put it under the music group because they're working with Nintendo and they didn't want
association,
any
maybe.
brand? I
That's
don't
what
know.
I'm thinking.
That's the only thing I can think of.
That's what I'm thinking.
So it was interesting when I was originally researching this story. I found some source material that's reminded people that Sony a long time ago, back in the 90s, published stuff on Nintendo before PlayStation existed. But then PlayStation existed, and then they were like, well, of course we would publish under PlayStation because that's our video game brand. And so I would go back to that now and be like, if you've spent literally billions of dollars over decades building a publishing group and such a strong brand recognition around the globe, worldwide, people know what PlayStation is. Why would you pick another division of your company to publish video games under? It's kind of, I kind of don't understand.
I actually do now because I
all
know
become-
everything.
It's all become clear.
But I honestly think that exactly what you just said, but if you twist it slightly, is why. Like,
Okay.
because if you don't want to build up this entire brand and then be like, PlayStation is now on Switch. Or like people will be like, what do you mean that I can get this thing that's published by PlayStation on Nintendo? Like then people get brand confusion and they don't know what's going on. But if you're like, it's Sony Music Group, cool, I don't know what that is. Sounds good. I can get it on my Nintendo Switch and my PlayStation. Sweet. What is this? Is like a third party thing? Great. I don't care. Like,
But they have Sony Interactive Entertainment. That's the parent division of PlayStation. So I
they
mean,
could use
I
that, you think
I
they should've
definitely,
used that.
yeah, I
think-
definitely get what you're
didn't they
saying.
merge? I don't know. They've done a whole bunch of weird corporate stuff in the past couple years. I haven't kept
They
track
have,
of.
yes.
About all the divisions at Sony.
Because
to
there
be
was
honest.
when I worked there, it was split, and it was PlayStation and Sony, either SEN or SNE. I don't remember which one. Sony Entertainment
Sony Network Entertainment is what
and
you're
Sony
thinking of.
Network Entertainment. They're honestly they were two.
International America.
I think they
There
are still
were
two.
two.
I think they are still two.
No,
Brittany's like, oh my
We're gonna try to
god.
figure this out right now, guys.
No, I meant that they were. I meant that they.
Decipher Sony divisions and different.
I don't even think people at Sony knows what's
Branch
going
off.
on.
No.
They're like,
Yeah.
But they merged at one point. I think I'm pretty sure when it's like as I was leaving, I think they were merging.
Okay, so is
Anyways.
this just like a matter of, haha, we did a thing, we don't really understand what we're doing, how the industry works, haha, Sony Music on Nintendo, yay? Or do you think this is like sort of deep down an extension of goodwill?
To Nintendo
Mm-hmm.
from Sony.
Or is it just like a happy
Or-
little accident?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had enough time to think
process
about it.
that.
I think-
that's a good question. I don't think Sony really cares about extending goodwill. If they did, they would have met Microsoft in the middle and allowed Minecraft servers to have crossplay between PS4 and Xbox, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a goodwill gesture.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly Sony is focused on the bottom line for their business. So clearly this has something to do with how they can continue to make money. They wouldn't have started this
using
division.
the success of the Switch in order to
Precisely.
make some money. All right.
This is a
Now it all makes
backhand
sense.
Yeah.
around the corner deals with the Switch.
We've deciphered it, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen.
The
Yeah.
question is, I'm not familiar with the games. Are they good? Do we know?
We don't know. One of the
'Cause
games
usually that makes or breaks it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's
good
all about
question.
if the games are
We
good.
should have
if
asked that
not-
a while ago.
And that
Yeah.
was your point, I think, that you were going to make about free mystical magical publishing for everybody.
right.
Yeah.
So
Also explain that, please, and what your thought. You were gonna share. us.
yeah, so the
share
other
us that
point that
information.
make free limitless publishing a reality and why I think this is a bad idea. So they even say that they want to use their vast entertainment business wisdom, I'm doing air quotes here for everybody listening, to expose them to as many consumers as possible and to make free limitless publishing a reality. So this, in a nutshell, defines the problem with indie games today.
Yup.
Is that discoverability is the number one issue that indie developers are facing. Even if I make the best game that anybody's ever seen, it's got incredible polish, beautiful art, wonderful music, incredible characters. If people don't see it and play it, what did I do it for? Just for the art of it? And so when you make publishing free and limitless, it means that there's a whole bunch of it, which means there's a lot of noise. And that means those really amazing diamond in the rough games are going to be even harder to find.
Steam.
I was about to say Steam did this.
Exactly, which
And
is
it's
why,
bad.
you know, when I talk to devs, both indie and mid-tier, that even though, you know, at first it seemed like a good idea that Steam lowered the fees to publish on the platform, now they're saying, I wish Steam would raise the price. They're saying, I don't care that it would cost me more money. It would mean that my game has less games to compete against because there's so many other games that are just being published that are frankly garbage. There's a lot of really bad games on Steam.
Cut out have been actively cutting some of the titles. Well, the ones that seem obviously just put on there for no reason, just other to take up space.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, I've been seeing a lot of that happening.
And they clearly need to go and curate even further. It's frustrating.
Yeah, curation, and I think maybe something like it's weird to say, but like Reddit, you know how it's like upvote because you like it. Maybe a way of like sifting through the bad stuff. So
well, they
have
have a lot of creators that do Steam curation, handpicked community members. Total Biscuit, for example, I think Steam's top curator right now. He does play an enormous amount of games, and so he is definitely a good person to do it. But he's just one guy.
Yeah.
You know, even if they have a bunch of curators, which they do right now, I think the platform itself has a responsibility to its consumers to make sure that the games that are being published there are complete, that they're not
Of
broken,
a certain quality.
Yeah,
right? Exactly.
Deserving, you know, they deserve to be on that platform and to be played. And
Yes, which is why, you know, historically consoles have had a higher barrier of entry because both Microsoft and Sony have said, well, you have to hit a lot more parameters in your certification process in order to be published on our platform, which is why their marketplaces aren't as overwhelming as Steam is. Obviously, that's growing now as they kind of lower some of those restrictions because they're trying to compete in the digital marketplace. But I just like the idea that there's no restrictions to publishing, that they're just going to publish anything. It means that nothing is going to get the recognition it deserves.
Yeah, I think that's a really naive approach.
I mean, who is in this music entertainment group anyway? Who are these people? Do they come from video games? Do they know what the indie space looks like? This is what I want to know. I want to know like who's running it. I mean, because they have a lot of talented folks in the third-party group at PlayStation, and I'm not just saying that because my husband works there. But I mean, I would be curious to know if they're drawing from that talent pool, if they're cross-collaborating on strategy for games, if they're referring specific development teams to this specific publishing group or not.
I think they 100% should.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that they have that experience in curating their own indie titles. Why not offer that help? You know?
Yeah.
Well,
So, because now we get to watch these games and see how they do.
And see how they do, or try them out for ourselves.
Yes.
Maybe
Let's
they are
see
worth
what
it.
happens when things get untied.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
wonder if
Good.
it was like Sony Music Group also had like these connections with developers, and they're like, yeah, we'll figure out a way to get these games published somewhere, and then they figured out something with Nintendo, and then it happened. I mean, maybe that was I don't know.
Could have been.
You never know.
And I want, for the record, ladies and gentlemen who are listening and watching, I'm not like down on this. I think it's great that more creators are going to get an opportunity to publish their games. I just want to make sure it's done thoughtfully because we as consumers are so overwhelmed with choice right now that the idea of another publishing branch saying we're just going to like throw indie games at you is really daunting, and I just hope it's done, you know, with care.
Well, another point I want to add, which is a little different, is that I think Sony Music Group did a good thing in that they launched this, you know, they announced this, and so now these games are getting the attention that they deserve because it's like completely different, and now we want to check out these games to see if they're good. So there was that, you know.
It's not like they just blindly threw them on there and like, go make money.
They still approached it in a way that was like, got our attention.
True.
So
Very true.
there is that.
Were you
I was
something?
looking for a title.
Oh, the game titles?
Yeah.
Sorry. So the games are Tiny Meta, Last Standard, Merkava Avalanche, and Demo Reborn. So
Very
Tiny
interesting
Metal
names,
is
too.
coming out first on November 21st on PS4, Switch, and PC. And the release dates for the 3D action title Last Standard is TBA. The mech battle game Merkava Avalanche is coming to PC and TBA. And rhythm title Demo Reborn is coming to PS4, and the other titles are still up in the air.
Well, we'll find out soon whether or not this is worth it.
All right.
Indeed. Indeed we will. Ladies, is there any other news that you would like to discuss? Naomi, did we miss anything? Any big story?
Any big stories? I think that's good. I think those are 3 really good, very interesting stories.
We got her seal of approval.
Yes,
We've
yes,
done
we
good.
did it.
Check marked.
Fix approved.
Can we get like a stamp?
Oh yeah, like a daily fix stamp.
Yeah, we can put it on the video and be like, daily fix
Daily fix
approved.
You got your news for the day. All good.
I don't know if IGN would actually let us do that, but we can
Probably
think,
not.
we can dream.
Yeah.
Please, Fran.
Please.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a short break. So please stay with us when we come back after the break. We're going to talk about what we've been playing. Naomi's going to talk about what she's been playing. I hear it's a game that's on Switch. So stick with us. We'll be right back. This episode of the What's Good Games podcast is brought to you by TakeThis.org. Most of us spend a lot of time thinking about our bodies. Gain a little weight, lost a little weight, back hurts from sitting at a desk too much, stomach hurts from too much avocado. But how much time do you spend thinking about your brain? There are a lot of simple things that you can do every day to keep your brain in shape. Take breaks from work, get enough sleep, drink more water, put down those screens. Well, as much as you can. Now, it sounds simple, but taking care of your body's needs can actually help your brain too, because it's all connected. And sometimes your brain needs more help, and that's okay too. This is just one of the things that we learned from our friends over at TakeThis.org. Take This has been working to bring the mental health care community and the video game community together since 2012. If you or someone you love is feeling not okay and could use a little advice, visit them at takethis.org. And if you have the resources to donate or volunteer, takethis.org is where you can do that too. It's okay to not be okay. Take this. Welcome back, everybody. We are into our second segment of the What's Good Games podcast with special guest Naomi Kyle. Naomi,
Hey.
you've been playing some, I don't want to say old games, but games that released not in the last month or so.
No, they're definitely not. They were released quite a while ago.
Yes.
I finished Ori and the Blind Forest, which I had started and freaking loved, and then I
Yes.
just stopped playing. So finally finished that. Loved it. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Also started. Never finished. Finally finished that. Great experience and very emotionally and sometimes hard and heavy to play through. But now I'm just playing Stardew Valley.
Yeah, you
I'm-
are.
You
Yeah.
need a little relaxation, I would think, after Ori and the Blind Forest, because I loved that game too, but I actually did throw my controller, but
It's
I threw it onto the bed so
Yeah.
that I wouldn't destroy anything.
Yeah. I got to the point where I was just like, I'm just gonna use walkthroughs because I don't, I just want to finish the game, and it's such a nice game too. It's so it's calming at first, and you're like, I'm gonna love this, and then it just gets really
then it
hard.
just punches you in the
Super
face.
intense. I
Yeah.
remember when I was playing that game, the tree level where you have
Where the
to
water's
escape
chasing
the
you?
water up
Uh-huh.
inside the trunk of the tree. I thought I was going to break my controller in half.
It's hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where I threw it onto the bed.
That was that moment. Broke the controller. But now, Stardew Valley is just nice. It's very calming.
Who you gonna romance? Who's gonna be your husband?
I don't know. Yeah, I restarted. I started a whole new game because it's on the Switch now. So I bought it on the Switch. $14. It's so cheap.
I know.
Totally worth it.
Oh, yeah.
And you get so much game out of it. So I don't know who I'm gonna romance this time around. I forget who I romanced last time. Because I don't think it ever culminated. Like it never.
Oh, you never-
ended
you
up
never got
happening. But
married?
I pursued him. I think he would go to the spa all the time. I think that was his thing. Maybe. He was
Oh.
metrosexual thing. I'd have to
Hey,
look
man.
up to see who it was because I played it on my PC. But
Do you remember what color hair they had?
no, I don't remember.
I remember nothing
It was
about
a
this
while
man
ago.
except he went to the spa.
He went to the spa and I was trying to stalk him in the bathhouse.
Oh!
I love it.
Okay.
So
good.
really enjoying Stardew though. Going back to the world and like remembering why I like that game so much. And I never finished it. And I know that there's such a hardcore like fan base that, you know, if I don't finish this thing, it's gonna like be the death of me.
Is there any way to actually finish?
That's what I was gonna ask.
You
There
can
is a
finish
story.
you can finish the community stuff.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of like the end of the quote unquote story.
I think it's like have you ever played Harvest Moon or Story of Seasons or anything?
No, I haven't.
It's so funny to me, Natsume. Because Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons has been around since like the mid 90s, and it's basically the exact same thing, but Stardew Valley touches upon some more adult themes that you see within the game.
like lazy husbands and wives.
That and alcohol abuse, but you know.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about that.
Or
guy.
that, you know.
Yeah.
You were going down a serious road, and I was just making fun of things.
Well, you know.
As usual.
And those games are very, I mean, I think they were great and very popular, but then they kind of dropped off the radar. So now that they never had a console game for a really long time, and now finally it's coming to the Switch. It took them too long because everyone's all about Stardew because it's so accessible on
They're
Steam.
forgetting about these two
And
great games.
and on console. And
I
so,
should play them.
but no, yeah, I mean, no, Stardew beat him to the punch, and it's a fantastic game. I put maybe like 85 hours into it, but it's always interesting to ask if people had played those games before.
Yeah, Stardew I always like to say is Harvest Moon on crack.
Oh, now I
Because-
really have to play Harvest Moon just to see the.
We're gonna go
the
down a rabbit
difference,
hole because I'm very passionate about this topic.
Well, it's true because of the whole dungeon mechanic and those sorts of things that just don't exist in Harvest Moon.
But they exist in Rune Factory, which is like Harvest Moon and dungeon crawling. So I think Stardew Valley, the one person who created it, found that idea and they just made it amazing and combined it and made it into like a really great.
Pulled the
And they
strengths of
deserve
both.
every ounce of credit that they got because they took something and he turned it into something wildly
Yeah.
successful.
Yeah.
Harvest Moon on crack.
All right. I think that's pretty accurate.
Britt is upset about this
I'm
analogy.
not- that's what
Do
I'm
you
trying
think
to
it's
figure
not
out. Are you mad?
no,
about it?
No, I would say it's more Rune Factory on crack.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
Okay.
All right.
That's fair.
It's fair.
I don't actually know because I've never played Rune Factory, but I trust you.
Trust me, baby girl. Got you.
It was interesting talking about Ori and the Blind Forest because that's a game that got brought up into discussion after Cuphead released because I was talking about other 2D side-scrolling platformers that are brutally hard, and while I thought Ori was brutally hard, it was still approachable even though it required precision and you had to do memorization in certain areas and really kind of fail to succeed in a lot of ways. But for some reason the gameplay in Ori felt to me like it wasn't so brutal that it was unapproachable the way that Cuphead's felt. Have you gotten to try Cuphead at all?
Yeah. And I haven't played to the extent that you guys have. Like, I know you guys have finished levels and did the whole thing. I played a bit in the Let's Play, and I was like, this is impossible. I can't do it. I played, like, the first what was it, like, in 2015? Or, like,
it's been in development for a long time.
Yeah, it's so different, like, from that game that I played, or that version of the game. So, like, I definitely get that it's really hard. I'm very afraid to play it because I watched your guys' podcast on it, and I know that game is hard. So I want to maybe explore it, but yeah, I agree that Ori eventually became easier as you went along and upgraded and like all that stuff. So it made it less less of a torture. Like it was rewarding. You would be able to eventually complete the game, and I think I think I did pretty okay on the PC version. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. What about you guys with Cuphead or Ori, or which ones?
I am going to go back to Cuphead eventually, but right now, and I know Steimer's playing this now too, I am all about Middle-earth Shadow of War. So this is a game that I have been looking forward to all year long. It's been one of my potential Game of the Year contenders, and now that it's here, it's like so addicting, and I keep finding myself getting lost in the sandbox, and it's done so far. I'm about maybe 8 hours in because I haven't had enough time since it launched to play because we've been working on this top secret project, which we are going to announce eventually, don't worry. And so we've been hard at work, and then we went to Expo in Tulsa, and I didn't bring my console with since it was such a short trip. I brought my Switch with instead, and played more Zelda, but we don't need to talk about that again.
Is that not Game of the Year for you? Or is Shadow of War?
So
kind of
Zelda
up there?
is like definitely a top contender. For me, my number one Game of the Year, which will be a whole nother discussion, is Horizon Zero Dawn.
Oh,
But I really think that Super Mario Odyssey might take it over Horizon for me once I actually get my hands on it.
Ooh.
Because
Very soon.
from what I've seen of
He's
the game,
a blue shell.
yeah, yeah, no, really. I mean, I don't think that Mario's like a come from behind title. I think it always stood up, but I think it kind of snuck up on us because it's being released so late in the year, and Nintendo hasn't been doing like a huge like marketing push. It has been at several shows. It's been at PAX's and Comic-Con and a bunch of places. But I think so many people are still talking about the awe and the magic of Zelda that they're kind of forgetting that, you know, Mario came first. So I'm really excited.
It's upside down.
So I'm excited to see that. But so I really loved Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. It was my game of the year back then when it first came out. And I was excited to see that they were expanding the Nemesis system, that they were adding these orc tribes with their individual identities, that they were building in almost kind of like a base building mechanic into it, in addition to expanding the meaning of the open world activities. Because in the first one, in Steimer, you 100%ed it, they felt kind of empty, didn't they? Like the little random side activities you were doing in the open world.
They were just there, and the only reason I 100% of that game was because I was looking for more things to do. So it was like, I guess I'll go over here and kill these dudes with a bow. Like,
yeah. The challenges, they feel more fun this time around. There was a lot of those individual challenges that I just skipped in the first one because I was like so hungry for the story. But now I'm just like, I'm getting so lost, like going and taking down every outpost and making sure that the challenges are being done and going to collect every single Elvish word to unlock the door with the legendary gear behind it. And I'm really loving it.
So I'm still very, very early. Like, I'm even earlier than you are. I've played maybe 3 or 4 hours of it max. And I guess I'm nervous. And I'm nervous because I don't want it's because of what I don't want it to be. And it might not turn out like this, but I have a concern that they just bloated it and didn't edit out maybe parts that they should have. Like, I don't know. I think a lot of second games this happens with, or they're like, we made our first game and everybody loved it. We got to make the next one 3 times bigger. And you're like, why?
Yeah, no, that's fair. And Assassin's Creed fell victim to that for sure.
Yeah, and so I'm just hoping it doesn't fall down that hole of like, we added so many more things,
filler,
stuff to do, and not necessarily go through and be like, well, maybe this one part wasn't as fun. We should cut it. And I'm just going through the UI is a little like it. All over the place, and like there's a lot of menus and stuff which I'm not.
It's very RPG in that way, more than the first one felt more action adventure with like some RPG in. This one definitely feels like it's gone far more into the RPG realm and kind of like obviously still very much an action adventure game, but like the skill tree system is deeper this time around, and the branches are very interesting. I like that they don't gate them behind a level that you can choose. Like I've already maxed out my ranged. I mean, I've gone all the way to the last tree. Obviously, the sub trees are not maxed out yet. I mean, that would mean I was much farther along in the game. But I like that I can, go to all of the major points of each of the trees if I want to. That they're not going to restrict me going there based off what part of the story that I'm at. There is a specialty tree at the bottom that is purely locked to story content, but it's just one of like 6 branches.
Yeah, so what I tried to do is I mostly just went through story content so far because people on Twitter were like, make sure you do that because like certain things are locked to it, and you don't necessarily need them, but you want to, and I guess I'm confused. One thing I noticed that I didn't see, and maybe you're farther along, you'll know. At some point, did they tell you what level you should be for the story missions, or?
Yes and no. So this was something that I was confused about as well. So I am at Cirith Ungol, which is like the first major tower that you get to. It's like the second region beyond the initial region when you start the game. And when I first opened up the world, it was like level 150 and I'm level 8. And I'm like, this seems like an impossible thing for me to get to. But what I realize is as I started taking down the individual
captains
orcs,
yeah.
and then I started taking out the individual outposts, the level of the tower dropped. So now it's at like level 85.
Okay.
And so clearly what that's trying to signify to you is, hey,
Do more of this.
In order to drop the level of the person inside the main tower, I mean, you can go for it if you want to, but if you want to have a realistic shot of beating it, you need to go do all this side stuff first, including, you know, hopefully using the Nemesis system to find out details on the war chiefs, who then connect to like the base overlord guy, who is obviously really high level. So I'm about level 8, I think, right now. And then like the war chief, who is the second tier below the top guy, is like level 20. So I clearly still have some grinding and some story content and stuff to do before I can take him on.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah, the whole thing for me with this game, I think kind of would open up a larger discussion that and something that I struggled with when I was at IGN, and that is like feeling the pressure to like move on to the next thing faster than you're necessarily like ready to, especially like, you know, you do a podcast and you don't want to be talking about the same thing all the time. And so I think that's kind of why I went into Shadow of War. I have like the 2 regions unlocked, and I noticed like it looks like there's more, and I kind of just like,
oh, there's more.
Overwhelmed.
There's a
like
lot more.
yeah, exactly. I felt
Like anxiety,
overwhelmed.
Like, oh my god, I have to play this in the next week. No way.
And
Yeah,
I thought,
it's
and I just had this moment of like, oh my god, do I even want to do this? Which
Yeah,
is
that's
not
true.
how I want to feel about this game, because when I played it at demos, and I have, you know, you have a lot more things unlocked
Yeah.
at demos, so you feel like way cooler than you do at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the game, I'm like, I can't even like jump across this thing very easily.
But I mean, even from level like 0 to 8 where I'm at now, and I've unlocked so many more things, I feel like the combat is so good. And that
Totally.
was one of the really impressive parts of the first game. It really felt like it had that like Arkham combat going for it, like the flow, and being able to combine your Wraith abilities with your Ranger abilities, and like the different elvish abilities that you can unlock. And I just really like the combat in this game. It's done so well.
when I played it at PAX, and like you had more things unlocked, I was exactly the same way. I'm like, oh my god, like, yeah, just hack everybody to death. It's amazing. And I'm not there yet, like with my personal character. I just unlocked or chose to grab like the perk where you can double jump basically across areas so that its traversal's a little nicer, because I actually think, and maybe I kind of want to go back and be like, I feel like the climbing was better before. Like, I feel like it's
The climbing is way better now. I don't know what you remember.
It's worse now.
You do?
I'm
It's so
like
much faster
trying to
now.
go like to where I think maybe I just need to unlock more Wraith ability. Like, I feel like when you're regular old Talion, like, it's not that it's not as
It's all about the
good.
Bright Lord. Yeah.
And then the Bright Lord just like is like, I'm gonna crank this dial up to 12. Like, everything's way better now. And so I think once I start to unlock his abilities, the game will feel a lot better. But I kind of am a little annoyed that it's gonna take that long.
I mean,
Yeah,
any
it's a lot.
open world
I
RPG
know.
experience that has combat, you can't just walk in and like
Be
you
a
know.
base.
But
Yeah.
I've got things to do. No, I'm
Yeah.
just-
Well,
I think that's the circle I was talking about. Was
Totally.
like where you're like, because we got
How
South
am I gonna get
Park,
through this?
we've
Yeah.
got
Assassin's Creed Origins, Super Mario Odyssey, Wolfenstein.
Oh my god, that's coming up too on the 27th.
Uh,
It's stressing me out,
I know.
and because like my house isn't together, my apartment's a total mess. I
Girl,
have clothes
we gotta
all over
record
the floor.
the podcast there next week. You got like
We
you
are
got like
approaching
6 days.
Thanksgiving and Christmas
Wait, what do you?
too.
Oh, I see what. Yeah. I was like, wait, you're all coming to my house? I don't know why I just thought that.
Steimer's just in panic mode.
I am.
She is.
Ever since starting.
I'm in
Say
a-
more.
Low key panic all the
Just
time.
drink and play some games. The
Yes,
mess.
alcohol will help you through this. It'll be
Okay.
the driving force.
Just sweep all the mess under your bed.
I have a platform bed. There's nothing under
I
it.
get fucked. Oh my gosh. So I'll probably have more to report later. I did open one loot box because Warner Brothers provided us with the gold edition of the game. They gave us digital codes. And so along with that edition comes, I think, one box. And so I opened it and it gave me like 3 legendary orcs, and I don't know what to do with them. I'm not quite sure how that whole system works. So I just kind of put them to the side and was like, I'll come deal with this
Be back.
later.
I'll be back.
Just put some orcs to the
So
side.
once I figure out how that all works, I'll report back. But Britt, you have been playing The Fractured But Whole.
Oh, I have.
Tell us, how good is it?
I will. I have a hair in my mouth. Okay.
Take it out. Get rid of it.
So I loved the Stick of Truth. I'm all about the vulgarity. I love that kind of toilet humor. Like, I am all here for it. I love it. And something I loved about the Stick of Truth was that it wasn't afraid to go anywhere, just like the TV series isn't afraid to go anywhere. And so going into the Fractured Butthole, I have to say so far, it feels just very much like the Stick of Truth. The combat has been changed a bit, as we know. But I'm maybe 4.5 hours into it, and honestly, it just looks and feels like the Stick of Truth, but with superheroes. But that's totally fine with me. You know, it's the same town, South Park, so it's not like the setting is any different than it was. And I haven't discovered any way that they're totally like reimagining the things. I'm so early on because I've spent most of my hours just exploring and going into the houses that aren't covered by red Legos, which is hot lava. And everyone knows you can't cover.
Oh. Yes.
You can't go past the hot lava. So I've just been going inside the homes and like collecting all of like, you know, the loot and the crafting materials and kind of like laughing about the stuff you'll find in people's drawers, like butt plugs and shit. It's great. It's interesting because I started playing the game on normal difficulty, and I found that it definitely required some strategy to it, but it wasn't hard or impossible. But after maybe like 3 or 4 hours, I'm like, I was like, I'm not playing this for the combat. You know what I mean? So I turned it down to the easy mode just so I can get through the combat. The combat's fun, and I definitely think it's an improvement over the Stick of Truth. But I mean, I guess I'm just saying, like, I don't need to play that game for the combat, and it's not like it's like Shadow of War combat or Horizon combat or Zelda combat where it's like rewarding and super fun to like go through, and because it's turn-based and your moves are pretty stagnant. You do have many characters you can circle through, but even then it's not like interesting enough for me to want to spend like 5 to 10 minutes per battle when I know like Mr. Slave is just in that house right across the street from me, and I want to go like see what he has to say.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're the driving force is more like the story.
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
raunchy humor that you're gonna encounter. And, like, the awkward moments.
Exactly. And because I've
really
been
like,
the good moment, I love those.
I've seen some of that gameplay, and
I'm getting
crazy the
my
places they go.
My next mission is to find the woman with the dick tattoo on her, which we all know is the strip club scene.
The
That
strip
we've-
club.
we've
Yes,
seen
that's
many
exactly
times.
kind of the scene I was thinking about. when I said that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so since I've been spending most of my time traveling around and going through the homes of the characters, I haven't gotten to any of those like super like vulgar raunchy moments like in the Stick of Truth where your parents were having sex and you were a gnome and you had to like walk past them.
That was the craziest shit I've ever
man.
seen in a video game.
So
I remember
funny.
when that was happening, I was like, oh my God.
That's happening.
They did this.
Yeah.
What was the most shocking part to you?
That they're the two characters are having sex behind you.
That
I
was
was just
shocking.
like,
And going inside, was it Mr. Slave's ass? Was it Mr. Slave?
That
That
to
just seemed
me,
like
that
another-
to me was the one scene that put me off that game.
Yeah?
like
Oh, really?
the anal probe scene. I was like, I don't need to waste my time doing that. I'm sure somebody's gonna tell me about how clever and witty it is. I'm good.
It's
But
like
no,
the
but
magic school bus when they go through the body.
Oh, that was good.
I mean,
Just
I wouldn't
kidding,
say
just
that was
kidding.
educational. This is like grotesque for the sake of being grotesque.
But that's South Park, right?
yeah, exactly.
they
Like
go
South
to
Park
the-
mixes high and lowbrow humor all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to seeing like, you know, this sounded really bad, but like where the game goes, like what's going to be the thing that's going to top off the parent sex scene or the
Yeah.
anal probe scene. Like, how are they going to break that mold?
I've heard some things
Yeah.
about
I've seen
the fractured butthole and how some people thought that they couldn't top the places they went in the Stick of Truth, but apparently they have.
Yeah.
But conversely, I've heard from other people that they thought it was more tame, and I was like, I don't know if tame is the word you would ever use to
Right.
describe anything South Park does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's clear to me from the time I've spent playing the game, and of that, it's been pretty minor, especially compared to, you know, the other ladies at the table. But you know, it's a game that if you are like me and you occasionally, indulged in South Park episodes of the cartoon, but you weren't really into Stick of Truth, you're probably not going to be into the Fractured But Whole. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, I don't know why you would all of a sudden change your mind.
Yeah, no, I mean, the most grotesque thing that's happened so far is I fought a couple priests in a back room and they pulled holy anal beads out of their ass and beat me with them.
Gross.
I mean,
they beat you with things covered in feces.
But it's
The game's
a
called
cartoon.
Butthole, so
Yeah.
That's true.
Something
There's
cool.
there has to be butthole humor in there.
There
Like,
has to
you
be
can't
butts.
not have that.
Something that the game is doing that I don't know if the Stick of Truth did this for me because it was so long ago is it's actually given me like a sense of childhood nostalgia. Like,
oh yeah,
I
You're a
started-
South Park fan.
I started watching South Park in elementary school. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Whoa.
Explains a lot.
What? My parents would never.
No.
Now my parents are cool. They're chill. It explains a lot
Damn.
though.
I want to meet your parents.
But it's not just the fact that I watched it. It's that there's just all these kids and there's snow on the ground. It reminds me of being winter break and
Oh,
playing
yeah.
like superhero or playing like whatever it was you're playing.
Also, the context of the story helps like bring you back to your childhood days
Exactly.
living with your parents.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's really cute and clever the way that the kids have like their little fort set up with cardboard
Oh,
and like
yeah.
markers on them, and they make
That's
their
what
little
makes
like
Stick of Truth so good. too, I
yeah.
think.
So
they
it's
just
fun because I
capitalize on
feel
that.
like like I'm playing pretend with my friends, and then things get weird, and it's like okay, we wouldn't have done that. We wouldn't have gotten beat by Catholic priests, but
I hope
Well, I'd
not.
hope not.
well,
Especially not with their anal beads.
Oh God.
No. Terrible.
so good.
Naomi, you have been playing Stardew Valley, and we talked about Ori.
The ones I have like a good list of this games this year, which I'm really proud of
Yes.
myself for. But yeah, I went back to some games where I never finished them, but always wanted to, and then.
Cleaning out that backlog.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
what made you
little
want to go
bit.
back to Everybody's Gone to the Rapture?
So I had played a little bit of it because I presented the award at the BAFTA Awards in London for the music, so the game won for music, and played a little bit and I never finished it. So I just was, it was on my PC, it was like on my desktop, and I was cleaning out my computer. So I was like organizing all my games, and I'm like, I should go back to that, and then went back to it.
So what did you think about the way that they kind of wrapped up the game? I mean, so for people who don't know, this is all walking simulator, the Chinese Room. Is that who developed this game?
Yes, yeah.
And it's a very beautiful game, but it does kind of go to a dark place because you obviously come to this town and everybody's gone, and you're kind of trying to piece together the story. It's almost in like what happened in What Remains of Edith Finch, even though Everybody's Gone to the Rapture came out before Edith Finch did. And I never ended up finishing that game either, and I don't know why. So what happens? I mean, without spoiling it, if you can.
Without spoiling, that's gonna be.
You're like, you just asked me an impossible question.
You just asked me what happens and then told me not to tell you.
to spoil it. For
Steimer,
how am I gonna do this?
I love you so much.
get it together,
Andrea.
Steimer.
I think you're unlocking the story. The title kind of says it all, but I think that. Man, I don't know how to do this.
Did they
without
go to the
spoiling
Rapture?
anything.
Is that where everybody went?
Yeah, and it kind of. So yes, everybody has. Yes. Okay, let's just say it. It's in
Does
the
it-
title, so yeah, it's already spoiled.
Does
for you.
anything happen mechanically that's intriguing or different
Mechanically,
than the beginning?
No, it does not change. It's very
Okay.
much unlocking stories as you go.
Okay.
So there's nothing mechanically that changes, but you uncover things and it's like wow moments, and you're like, oh, like somehow you find out like this was her experience. So each character has their own Rapture story that you are unlocking, and you're that main character. What's her name? I forget her name. Oh man, I forget. But they're basically you're uncovering too, like kind of what they went through
I can look
as
it
the
up for
Rapture
you.
was happening, because it's not like an instant thing where everyone just disappeared. Like people got sick and they were having nosebleeds and they were like disappearing, like not necessarily just dead corpses everywhere, but they disappeared and we don't know what happened to them.
It's not a horror game, is it? Or does it have
No,
a horror
it's
element?
just an experiential game. Is that a term? And what happens is you kind of it's like a lesson. It's a little bit of it has a little like everyone has their own experience, and life is it's just like it's a whimsical. It's like what you whatever you play, you interpret it yourself, and you kind of come up with your own ideas of what it is. It doesn't really have a solid like resolution.
Okay.
But it does leave you with a sense of like you've just gone through something really heavy and hard, because you're very deeply brought into these stories and people like die. Like I even cried. I'm like,
Aw.
yeah. So
Kate and Steven, Are the names?
Yes, that's right.
Of the
So
protagonist.
Kate, I think, is the last person that you get to find out what happened to her at the end of the Rapture. There's a sense, like light beams and things like that kind of show you like when these people disappear, there's a light beam and there's like a plane. You hear like a really loud noise over, and I don't know if the plane is actually real or if it's just like the idea or how they imagined it. But yeah, they disappear into the Rapture, and then that's it. That's the end of the game.
Goodbye.
Anyways, I pretty much spoiled everything for you guys.
No, I think you're fine.
Because I'm sure
Good.
that the point of the game is to experience those
It's
stories,
very much an
right?
experience.
Yeah.
Like there's no way to describe it where you'll really get the feeling of what I'm.
That makes sense.
Did
what
you
I went through.
Play
playing it.
Edith Finch?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
That's
never
why
mind.
you brought that up, and I was like, oh, now I maybe want to check that out.
You
should.
definitely
Right,
should check it
everybody
out.
should.
One of my
Right.
favorite games of the year for sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's like one of those short, like kind of.
It's
Yeah.
short.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
you'll
should be able to
games.
complete it in
love
about
those.
3 hours, I would guess.
Aren't they great?
They're so good.
It's just like, oh my god, I can play this
They're
in an
my favorites.
afternoon?
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah. Between
games.
bite-sized games and like the Switch, I have like everything I need for the rest of my life. I feel like.
Yeah.
I mean, I love console games and I play PC games all the time, but I just feel like
Sometimes you need a snack.
sometimes these little.
Speaking of
bits and pieces
bite-sized
here and there.
games,
That was great transition.
Britt and I played a game called Another Lost Phone, Laura's Story.
Yes, please tell me. What
So this game came out on iOS, Android, and Steam, and I chose to play it on my iPhone. Britt, how did you play it?
iPhone.
So what's great about this game is that it's another installment. So Another Lost Phone was the first game, which Britt, you played.
I did.
So I didn't play the first one. I only played Laura's Story. So can you before we talk about Laura's Story, talk about like what Another Lost Phone is?
Another Lost Phone. No, this is the sequel, right? Because I get
No,
confused.
the first game.
The first one's called Another Lost Phone, right? So essentially, what happens is that you pick up how it's supposed to play out. Is you come across a phone and you have to discover what happened to the owner of this phone, where they went, what the hell happened. And what's great about the first one and the second one is they touch upon, like I was saying with Stardew Valley, but to a much larger extent, a very like real adult mature issues. And how the game works is you open it and you have access, let's say, to all the text messages, and then you go through and you read.
detective.
Yeah, and so it looks
Exactly.
cool. Right, you're playing the detective, and you go through the text messages, and through that you might notice some keywords or some numbers, and then maybe that will unlock the Wi-Fi. Now you can access your email, and then from that you can access like
so
a
you're just
secret-
hacking this person's phone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Essentially, yeah. And
Yeah.
and at the end of it, in the first one, I won't give away what the story was. It's like, hey, like this thing happened. If you find this phone, this is what I want you to do with it.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, so
Wait,
in Laura's Story, and what's interesting about playing it from your phone is like it kind of makes you feel like you're checking email and
Yeah.
checking text on your phone. So it's clear that you have Laura's phone and you get access to Laura's emails. And so when you're reading the emails, there'll be maybe like photos in the email. And then there are puzzles inside the game where in order to unlock her like LinkedIn knockoff messaging system, you need to recognize 3 people and say, because you know how sometimes on Facebook as like security question, they'll be like recognize these people in these photos. So you have to use your deductive skills to go back into the text messages or the emails and try to figure out the names of the people in the photos. It was like, it's been a while since a game really wanted me to like write down something for the puzzles, which I thought was really great. And the puzzles were just hard enough to really make you think and to really make you go back and have to really kind of connect the dots on your own without being without you feeling super stumped. And the puzzles ramped as well. So like they started out like pretty simple. Like they knocked you over the head with a couple of ones. They're like, okay, this number's clearly like the pin for something. And then as you got farther into it, you kind of started to question things. You meet Laura's boyfriend, Ben, in the text messages. Like you see their relationship. You see this cute exchange when they had their first date and how they eventually moved in together. And then things take a turn. And I don't want to spoil what happens in the turn, but I'll only say that Ben becomes a man that I did not see coming. And it makes
I
you
just saw
question
something
things.
Ben related on here.
Yes, there you
Oh,
go.
you know.
So the ladies have I booted up the phone on my phone booted up the game on my phone, and so they're like snooping through like her calendar and stuff like that. But like you were saying, Andrea, to speak on the puzzles, they start out like, you know, you see like a code, like a number, and you're like, okay, this has to be for something. But then later, one of the codes you need is like the year of her first boyfriend's, the year that her first boyfriend was born, and the office number of her old boss, and something else. In order to get all the information, you have to look through everything.
You have to read every piece of mail in this
Did
woman's
you guys
phone.
take notes? Like,
Yes.
So I was just talking about that. Yeah.
yeah. So you need to like write things down to.
This
just
is
be
super
sure.
creepy.
It's very creepy. I haven't gone to the photos part. That's some part I'm
So
more
you-
curious
If
about.
I disappear, I hope nobody does this on my phone.
But if you actually disappear, don't you hope somebody's trying to
To
find out what
know.
happened to
find out
you?
your story.
No. Just let me go.
Oh.
Yeah.
Timer.
Let me go into the dark night.
No,
No, but like, what if you're in
Timer.
danger? What if you need help? And that was interesting, is because when you start this game, you don't know what's happened to Laura,
Yeah.
because you get this rather urgent message from somebody in her contacts, and it makes you think, well, is she missing? Did something happen to her? Did somebody like kidnap her? Is she just like going rogue like that one streamer who went missing and just went on a bender in Vegas and like got everybody in a tizzle? Do you guys remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what's going on with her, and the game did a really excellent job narratively of making you work to find out what happened, and really kind of keeping you on your toes from the standpoint that like you think you know, but then you don't know, and then this thing happens over here that you didn't see coming, and then new characters get introduced like midway, and it was really excellently done. I didn't hear about the first game at all, and when they reached out and offered us a code to play the game, I was like, I'll fully admit that I was like, I don't know how I feel about this game, and I sat down to play it. I played it on my trip to New York when I went for the Nintendo World Championships, and I was like, wow,
Yeah.
this is really excellent.
It's really great. And if you like this one, you will love the first one. And I will say that nothing has really changed between the two games, but I think these games tell really, really important stories. I can't say it without spoiling it,
And it
but
seems like they have
Right.
interesting puzzles.
very,
kind
yeah,
of.
like it's interesting puzzles, but the overarching
Unexpected.
like-
I've never
yeah.
seen a game mechanic like this before.
It's a game mechanic that tells a story.
Yeah.
It's like you're reading a book, but it's a game.
Exactly.
It's very strange.
Dun, dun, dun. I hope they continue putting out these, because they only take an hour, 2 hours, depending on like how much you
yeah.
want to read, how in depth you really want to go down that rabbit hole. But by the end of it, I felt like, wow, like that was really powerful and really moving. And they do a really great job at sneaking in advice for people going through similar situations as to what these characters are going through.
Oh wow, that's also good. I mean,
Yeah, it's really
so
great.
it's a real life.
Oh, it's very real life, and these are
Very
Bring
similar to
anything-
how Life is Strange addressed some very heavy topics and encouraged discussion about the topics. This game does something similar about tackling some, pretty heavy social issues and saying, like, let's take a look at what these mean and how you could address them. And
wow.
and they do at the end of the game, of course, say, like, if you have experienced anything that's happened to these characters in the game, here's, some support. And of course, obviously, we're a big proponent of Take This. But if you ever need to talk to anybody about anything, doesn't matter what, takethis.org. But I thought it was really excellently done. So if you guys have heard of this game and you are maybe hesitating on playing it, I would recommend playing it on your phone because it is such a portable
Yes.
experience, but it is also available on Steam if you prefer to play at your PC. But
Bring
it
a
kind of
notepad.
takes that phone experience away when you're
Yeah.
clicking with your
Yeah,
mouse.
this seems like something I would want to play on my
Yeah.
phone.
So intuitive. You're just like,
Yeah.
I know how this
I
works.
did multiple times click my home
I
button
did too.
accidentally, and it like dropped me out of the game, and I was like,
Of
"Whoops!"
course.
Yep.
Yeah.
I could see
You
that.
said at the end that there's something that it tells you what to do with the phone. Can you go into that without spoiling anything? Because I'm very intrigued to what that is.
So there is a reason the phone has been left. It may be because someone is lost. It may be because someone doesn't want to be found.
Okay.
It may be because something nefarious has happened to someone. You don't know. You're just
You
gonna have to
don't
play
know.
the game to find out.
Yeah, you start it up and it's like, you have found a phone. Now find out the truth or something like that.
Yeah.
Dun, dun,
This
dun.
does sound interesting
Dun, dun.
to me because I on the shorter flights to and from LA here, I don't part of me is like, it's not worth it to bust out the Switch because by the time I get
It's always worth it
everything-
to bust out the Switch, but
Always.
This
especially
is-
but
for Stardew
something to
Valley.
have
Yeah.
for a shorter thing, or when I'm stupid and forget the Switch. Like
Oh,
when
I've done that before.
Yeah. But what's
Yeah,
great
that's
about
the
this game is
worst.
that you don't need to be connected to
No.
the internet to play. Like so many mobile games require you to be either connected to a Wi-Fi or your cell
that's
network.
so disappointing to me.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
love that Fallout Shelter never went that route.
Yeah,
You just
exactly.
play whenever.
Just bring a notepad and a pen, a napkin, just something to take.
I'm
some
gonna
notes.
I'm gonna like get my library glasses on
Oh,
and like bust
shoot.
out like my detective pad
And hat.
and
Do you have a detective
I
hat?
need
You
a
can't be
pipe.
detective
Will you
without
bring
a
like a
hat.
comically
hat.
oversized magnifying glass?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just like,
while I'm
great.
wearing
Mustache.
glasses. Double magnification.
Okay, well, this has been a great convo, but we are running extremely behind. So we're going to wrap up the hands-on segment of the show, and when we come back from the break, we will talk to Naomi about what she's up to. What are you doing? So stick with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. This is the final segment of the What's Good Games podcast, and we have a lovely special guest, Naomi Kyle. Thank you so much for coming down and joining us here in the
course.
studio. So we've known each other for quite a while in video games, and
Yes.
you've been working for IGN's Daily Fix for quite a while. I mean, has anything changed for you over the years? I mean, you're much more involved in the production than you were when
Yeah.
you first started.
Yeah, so executive producer.
Look at
girl.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
girl.
I
Love
love
that
another
title.
lady
It's
executive
nice.
producer.
Yeah, a lot has changed for me. I'm a lot more involved with, sponsorships and everything that we do for the show. Trying to grow out the show and do different segments, things like that. But I think the thing that's changed the most is just like really knowing that show and like being able to do it even on days where I'm like, I probably would not be doing this if I had a choice.
Can you run us through a typical day?
A typical day is I walk in the office, obviously. That's my place of work. But I walk in the office, I go to my desk, I read up on news stories. We're talking on Slack with like my other producer, Dan, John Borba as well, who helps with shooting and editing, and Evan Campbell, who is awesome and who writes the show remotely. So he starts up with stories. We're telling him like which stories we think we should go with. And then he starts writing. I start editing my little things and quirks. And some of it's improv, like on the spot, but some of it I do write ahead of time. And we come up with stuff. If there's like a sponsorship that week, we write out the lingo for that. So that all happens in the morning. By 10:30, 11, I'm in the studio and we start shooting. The setups, I even like know how to set up the fix now. Like that's how much I know this show. So like I could set up the studio if I wanted to. Oftentimes I help with like turning on the TV screens and things like that. But the rest is like I'll just leave it to Dan or John, whoever's like the main person that day. And shoot the show. It doesn't take that long. Then we always do this thing called stills, which is basically me just posing in front of a camera.
Oh
awkwardly.
yes, I did that
Like
quite
this.
a few times.
Yeah,
I know all about that.
So after we've made a show, like let's make a show. That's kind of a thing we say. At the end, they're like stills, and they have the God voice. So like there's this control room, and then I'm in this main studio. So I'm all by myself in this dark room doing the show. So I hear Dan like on the speakerphone, okay, time for stills. So then we do the stills. Then I go in, I choose whatever stills I think work, and we start brainstorming headlines. I help with the reviewing of the final edit and stuff like that. And then I do all the lower thirds. So all the lower thirds, that's my language and my headlines. And I do the short link or whatever, the go.ign link. And there's another thing I do. Oh yeah, the shell. So I help on the back end, like I do the CMS and help.
So for people who aren't familiar with digital videos, a lower third is the graphic that is on the bottom or the lower third of the screen that displays usually name and title or the name of the studio. And CMS is a content management system, which
I'm
is
using all these terms.
No, it's okay.
You guys
It's
are
okay.
like,
That
"What's
that's basically like the back end framework of the website of IGN.com, where you would
Yeah.
input like the data, like where you would upload the
all
video
the
and all that
tags,
stuff.
Too, like I go deep into the tags. I know all the tags.
So many tags.
So many tags.
Hey, writing tags is almost an art form. Like we talk
is.
about how important SEO is for the
You have to
success
think
of
of
any
every
show.
possible thing people could search your show for. So I do that, and then write up the description as well. And I think that's about it.
It's crazy, like So for those of you who don't know, Naomi and I used to work together,
Yes.
and like
We
I
were
was there.
podcasting too, and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
we did IGN Girl Fight once upon a time.
Once upon a time.
And
yeah, I
I
used
was
to
there when
listen
you
to
first
that.
started. Yeah,
What? Sorry, not to go down this hole, but how long ago was that? That was
2011
Forever.
I started, so 2011, and then how long were you there after?
wow.
When did you leave? I don't even remember what year.
We're all getting old.
No, we're young and beautiful. I don't know
I
what
would
you're
have to
talking
check my
about.
resume. My
I started
resume
when
has
I
the
was
dates.
5 years old.
Totally, duh.
So, duh.
We were. It's like Muppet Babies, but IGN Babies.
I love that that's a ditty now. We just made that up.
Steimer's the queen of ditty. She sings everything.
I love it.
That's true.
I love it. So yeah, that's the gist of it. There's a million other things too. Like I always get pulled into projects and live streams and like do VO for sponsorship stuff.
Yeah, one of the new projects that has been being pushed not only on IGN.com, but you guys are also doing DXP on Disney's XD channel.
Yeah, we
like
did
you're
that
on
all
broadcast
summer.
TV.
I
You're
was
on the real
broadcast TV
television.
for my first time ever in my life. It was so good. Like I really had a good summer doing that project because it was 30 episodes, 30 minutes each.
Wow, that's a
Lots
lot of
shooting,
content.
Lots
yeah.
of shooting. So we did all summer long, just worked on that. I bought a bunch of tops and clothes and stuff for that show. It was really good.
You're like, my wardrobe is now
Too big.
fine.
Oh yeah, remember
fine
when
forever.
I told you that I like brought it down to this like manageable amount? Not anymore.
it,
totally gone
it bloated back.
to the bloated.
That's
like,
that's my problem too, and the girls make fun of me because I have dedicated what is supposed to be a small bedroom. I've made it into a walk-in closet.
I'm not judging you.
Well,
I would do that 100%.
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, when we first moved in here, John was like, "Oh, like there's a nice walk-in closet in the master bedroom," and I was like, "No, this room is going to be my entire closet."
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Welcome to being an on-camera person. So
You have like a million t-shirts. Like that's the thing for me. Is I
It's
have So
true.
many t-shirts just being. a
well, when
host,
you're on
it's like-
camera 5 days a week, because I used to do 5-day-a-week news for a very long
Oh, so you
time.
know.
Like it's like one of those things that you just like you have to rotate stuff because when you see yourself in the thumbnail in the same outfit, like it's not good. People notice.
Yeah, me too.
But you've gotten to do so many cool conventions and gotten to travel with IGN. Is there any of those projects or any of those shows that have particularly stood out for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think the BAFTA Awards, I mean, that was just an event. I actually did do content for that. I did the Twitch stream on the red carpet, and then I went and presented the award, which was like, it's like my Oscars moment. I felt like, you know,
Yeah.
it's like I got to be a presenter there and to be in London for the first time. That was my first time ever in Europe, actually. So that was something amazing I got to be a part of. I'm trying to think. There's some like movie projects too that were pretty cool. Like I got to work opposite some pretty, you know, some well-known actors and things like that.
Were you
So-
working with? I want to see Terry Crews on the YouTube
yeah.
originals.
Oh, yeah, that's probably the most recent one I'm excited about because so Good Game is like this really awesome. It's made by Michelle Morrow. She
And
helped-
Jesse Cox
Jesse
and
Cox.
Dan Harmon.
Dan Harmon was in it. I actually was in a trailer with him and he was playing Minecraft. It was amazing. And I outed him as he was playing Minecraft. He's like, I'm supposed to be doing work. Don't say anything. And I'm like, but you're playing Minecraft. Is that so cool? Yeah. So, and then I got to work opposite Terry Crews, which like we had call time for like 2 o'clock and it only ended up shooting at like 8. So I got like 5 hours chatting with Terry Crews and it was great. And he
Wow.
talked about his kids and we just like nerded out about games because he's like all into that now. And he was just telling me about his family and like his amazing experiences like in this career that he has.
Aw.
And it was just really cool. And he was just so like just down to earth and
He seems
Made
like the
me
guy you
laugh.
definitely want to be friends with.
yeah. Yeah, he made me laugh, and I was happy to like make him laugh sometimes too. I
Yeah, girl.
felt good. So yeah, yeah, and it was a cool scene. It turned out to be really nice.
In addition to IGN, you also have a Twitch channel that
I
you
do.
regularly do creations on that Steimer made a guest appearance on.
You
We made
did.
poutine.
We made poutine,
and I was starving, and I was like, Naomi, feed me.
Oh
We
my
have to
god!
get something.
I'm so glad that we got to do that. That was, and I got to feed you some poutine.
You did. It was really good.
It was good.
So, I mean, explain the poutine thing
Yes.
because a lot of
Yeah.
people know, or maybe they don't know that you're from Canada.
yeah, and specifically Quebec, which like isn't that's where poutine like was born. So yeah, because poutine gets born.
The sweet little baby of
The
poutine.
baby poutine. So yeah, I grew up in Quebec, and poutine's like just the big thing everyone talks about. Like even the Backstreet Boys, I remember it was like all in the headlines in the newspaper that Nick Carter had said, "I love poutine," and like when he visited
Quebec was
Montreal,
like, amazing.
everyone was so happy. But
What's
yeah.
the perfect poutine?
Really, like it's the trashiest poutine you'll ever eat, and it's the best.
No,
basically
describe
it's just
it.
like really oily potatoes
Ooh.
with still potato in them. Like I find a thing here in the States is you'll get a potato at McDonald's, and it's like there's a little bit of potato in there, but most of it's just shell. Like it's all crispy fried
Right.
potato. So like thick cut fries. You want to get like some homemade gravy. Usually it's like made from scratch, and cheese curds. That's like the hardest thing to find here.
Love me some cheese curds.
Cheese curds, like, and the squeaky kind. And I don't know. We didn't have that for
We
ours.
didn't. But we made do with what we could find because there's
You
not a lot
kind
of
of gotta
squeaky
go
cheese.
to like
Well,
the upper Midwest,
to
like
go
Wisconsin,
north, yeah.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah.
North, and you have to get it within 24 hours, or else
Fresh.
it
Or it
loses its
stops squeaking.
its squeakiness. Yeah, no, that's true. That's literally what happens. So that's the perfect poutine.
That sounds
It's
great.
funny.
Yeah.
Now I want poutine.
I know. I'm
I
hungry.
know. I'm like, and can
It's
we go
chili
get
cheese
something?
fries, but like on
I
crack.
know where we can get some after this if we want to go.
Yes.
Which place are you thinking about?
So there's a tavern.
I know which one
So
you're
it's not
talking
even
about.
like smoked
Okay.
poutine, because like smoked poutine is the closest you'll get to like authentic poutine.
Well, that
Here in the
was
States.
that might mean we have to drive much farther.
No, I know. So this place is a tavern, you said?
Yeah.
It's like an upscale like gastropub type tavern.
That
place.
good.
sounds like a poutine place to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
like a local hang. So your channel, what
Yes,
can
yeah.
people watch on your channel?
So cooking, we did
Yeah.
that. So we definitely do cooking streams. I've been doing a lot of breakfast streams because Kyle and I do breakfast on Saturdays.
Also, say
Oh,
the
that's
say the
adorable.
link because I don't think we've said what.
Oh yeah, so twitch.tv/Naomi Kyle. It's just my name. But yeah, actually Kyle's a huge part of it. He was working for Twitch, and now he works at Blizzard. But he helped me with the setup, and he's like such a big part of that show. And he likes doing it, and he loves interacting with the community and like moderating too, because there's some baddies on there. Yeah, I do a lot of cooking, mostly art. Mostly I do a lot of doodles, a lot of artwork with oil paints, because I like working with oil paints, and sometimes I'll do an occasional DJ stream, which I don't do DJing professionally by any means, but I use an app called Jeay. Wow, I messed that up totally.
We got it.
Yeah.
So I use that, and I just like putting together like playlists and stuff.
Are you gonna paint a pumpkin?
I want to do that.
Steimer's pumpkin actually turned out really
Yes.
good. Let me grab it.
Yeah, Summer
100%.
made it. I mean, don't let my monstrosity.
These are the cutest.
They are
I
adorable.
was wearing those. So it was the last stream that you guys had these on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was we created these in a Patreon exclusive video. So that's the cat is Steimer's. I just made a derpy
Amazing
controller.
cat.
Yeah, the
Thanks.
cat is
Those are
really
artistic
good.
skills.
Yeah.
I can only draw cats.
That's
And
better
you
than
are
what I can
studying
do.
out, girl.
And that's Alexa's anime pumpkin. It has a tramp stamp on the back.
what? These are so good.
Yeah. Never
I
grow
wish
up.
you guys could see the detail of this up close. It's amazing.
Well, if
Wow.
you're
Sorry, I'm gonna drop
a
that one.
patron at the $1
Oh, no,
level or
drop it,
above,
Will.
yeah, sorry, we can re-glue that back on. That's my bad.
we can rebuild him. We have the technology.
Oh, these are just so good.
Thanks.
Oh my god.
We
You
did
guys
our
are such
best.
artistic-
Could I get a compliment on my pumpkin, Naomi?
Oh my god. No, but it's true. I know. I feel terrible because I didn't say anything. But you weren't here, and I was complimenting the eyes on this pumpkin are freaking the best. And I just love that the word "butts" behind it, because I like to use that all the time, because I can't say the. Can we say ass on?
Yes,
this?
you can
Yeah.
say whatever you
Sorry,
want on
said
this
it.
show.
But I always say kick butt instead of kick ass on my show, because I can't swear. But
Oh,
so I like the word butt.
okay. But can you compliment something I actually drew?
Britt is feeling
yes,
very
actually,
insecure.
I do love the mouth, and it looks like he's like smoking a nailed up cigar.
Totally.
Or, like,
Yeah.
Barbed wire cigar.
Thank you.
No,
Ooh,
it
a
is
barbed wire
Thank you.
cigar.
I love
That
like,
sounds
people-
real
People
badass.
say it's like, what did I actually draw? But it's actually the composition of the whole thing.
I love you
That
so
I love.
much. You're a
No,
sweetheart.
It's true. I know. That's so important though. Like composition is almost like 100% of art. It's like the key thing. You guys nailed it.
So when did you start painting and drawing? Is it something you've been doing kind of your whole life, and you just decided to start a channel and show the world your artistic gift?
Yes. Well, I couldn't do games, so that was the main thing. I was like, what else can I do? And I was hearing Kyle obviously has the inside, but there was always like Twitch. What's it called now? I'm blanking on it.
Creative. Yeah.
It's been a long day.
Yes.
So Twitch Creative, and I was like, people do art on there, and I'm like, oh, like I've done art all my life. Like my grandma taught me using Bob Ross videos how to use oil paint and how to paint, pretty relatively skillfully, like through that. So I've been painting all my life. I actually come from an artistic family, which I didn't realize until like now, like till much later in my life. But yeah, my grandfather taught me how to paint, and then like all these little things started like come to mind after I started doing this. And I always drew, and like I always succeeded in my art classes in school, and it was just a thing that was really highly encouraged in my family for me to continue to do. So I always have dabbled in it. I've always done it as a hobby. Like I used to work at a music store, and I would just doodle on pads of paper, and people would be like, oh my God. And so it's just like always been something I did. So now it's nice to explore that again and like
kindle that fire.
Rekindle that fire, totally, and to get more creative with things. I love it. I love it so much.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Would you, if you weren't working in video games, do you think you would be working in art, or is it just a hobby?
It's more of a hobby. But Kyle has often pushed me, and he's like, you can make money doing art. Like, you can make money doing this. So I'm not saying I would probably not try just for fear of failing, because I think that it's really hard to become an artist, especially in this world with so much noise. Like, everyone has their own art website or their own thing. So it would be about finding something really specific that hopefully I can make money off of. But it'd be hard, I think, to pursue a career in art. So I would probably pursue like zoology or something.
Zoology.
That's
Yeah,
That took a
I love
turn.
animals. I would want to go and like study animals and like just hang out with animals, or go to NASA and
Just
to
go
space.
paint animals, and then you can combine those two things.
Yeah,
Paint
that's a
animals
good
in
idea.
space.
Oh yes, animals in space.
Oh
There's
my God.
thing. That's how I'm gonna make my $1 billion, guys.
Pandas,
I want royalties.
pandas in space.
Oh my God, make them red pandas. You've got me. Totally.
Oh, those
on
are the
board for this
cutest
project.
pandas.
Yeah.
They are the cutest pandas.
I mean, all pandas are pretty
mean,
cute.
yeah.
They're
but-
not
Yeah.
technically that related to other pandas, but that's a different story.
They used to be called firefoxes. Fun fact.
And then the web browser
Ooh.
used it. No, just kidding. That's not a story.
It's all the fault of actual Firefox Company, LLC.
They're like, we're trademarking this. Sorry, animal, you can't have it anymore.
That would be terrible to do that to a species.
it would be. Britt or Steimer, do you have any questions for Naomi while she's here? She has graced us with her time.
Oh my God, guys.
Oh my God, put her on the spot. Put her
I'm
on the
happy to be here.
spot.
She's technically putting
I
us
love
on
your
the spot.
show. I actually love your guys' show.
Aw,
that's
I
really
do
kind of
watch it.
you.
Like, you guys have, it's just amazing. I love everything about it. It's how I get my information now. I'm not even joking.
What?
It's true.
But
You
you
are
do this
amazing
every
and
day.
funny.
I know I do this, but like I read things. You know, it's so much better to watch like people, like especially women and you guys who I've known for so long. Like, it's true. I'm not even joking.
I know, but it's.
We're gonna
You're
have a big old
amazing.
cry fest, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
I will ask you. You are very, very good at on-camera talent and shenanigans. So you have like
Thanks.
one piece of advice for people who might be like a little shy, but they kind of want to try
Yeah.
to get into it. Is it something you've always been comfortable doing? Okay.
No, definitely not. Very nerve-wracking, like my first year at IGN. So I think once you do it regularly, like do it as often and as much as you can, and try to do it in front of people. Sometimes it's not always obvious, but it does help to like ease up and build your confidence, because you'll kind of find your own voice. I feel like that was the main thing for me. It's like after a year of doing it, I was like, oh, like now I don't have the nerves making this hard. So I can just grow into what I think is me.
Yeah.
And, you know, how I sound on camera. I think there's also, you know, you can always go the route of looking up some of your favorite, look up Andrea Renee videos and stuff.
No, I was gonna
any of these wonderful ladies.
I was gonna say it's an interesting point you make about doing it in front of people, and the thing is, like, a lot of times, especially if people get started in on-camera work now, they probably start off vlogging or doing Twitch videos by themselves. And even when in my early days, when I was doing on-camera teleprompter work, I was like you, like in a separate studio, shooting the green screen work, and then like the video would go to an editor. But when you have to read a teleprompter in front of other people, it adds a whole nother layer of fear to it. And then put that in front of like maybe thousands of people, it goes to like even like the stratospheric level of like nerves, and it doesn't really ever go away. Because sometimes people will ask me like, you can't possibly still get nervous anymore, you've done so much stuff, and I was like no,
do you even care anymore?
I was like, oh no, I get nervous every time.
Me
you
too.
know, it's just one of those things that never really goes away. Did you ever do stage stuff?
Yeah, I did like Sonic Blue or something. I forget. There was like a very popular Sonic fan event that was happening at Comic-Con one year, and I did that. That was like maybe my first live thing. And I was super nervous, but I killed it.
Of
but
course
I was
you
still
did.
super nervous. Like I was like, give me something to drink, or. But then I did a couple more, like the BAFTA awards, and like, God, there's so many now. I'm trying to think.
But it's probably like, I imagine once you're on stage, the nerves probably happen before you kind of like snap into that mode,
True.
right?
They do, yeah. And then you get comfortable, and you're like, okay, I can work in this space. It's also like a feeling of like being comfortable in the space that you are. It's hard to describe, but and the people around you too is very important, to have people who like won't point out the fact that you're nervous too, and who are like easy to play off of.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like if they're good at improv and they, are there to support you, like in moments of like, I have nothing to say and now it's quiet and awkward, they'll like back you up. Kind of like how we're doing it tonight,
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, the power of a great co-host sometimes goes unnoticed, and that's something.
I've had some bad ones. So
Oh,
I know,
yeah.
like when there's a huge difference to somebody who like is able to work off of another person, So there's a huge strength to that. I agree. And I'm trying to think what else is good advice, but that's pretty much
I think that's
it.
really good advice, because I think a lot of people see what you and Andrew do specifically, and it's like, oh man, public speaking is like a #1 fear of a lot of people, and it's, I think, reassuring for them to hear that, you started out really nervous and nerve-wracking, and you just got to do it more often and get in your comfy zone.
Exactly.
And you can get past it.
Yeah, and it's finding your voice too. Like a lot of the problem I had was like I hadn't had a lot of experience public speaking, and I hadn't had a lot of experience just talking about things that I liked. Like I knew the things I liked, but I didn't know maybe why or how to explain it. So definitely like watch people and how they go about doing that, and then also find people who you think you could emulate with whatever whatever kind of person. If you like that person and you think you kind of could pull something off like that, then maybe follow that person down to the very last second.
That's great advice.
Yeah, I think it's important to seek out other people for inspiration. Yeah, so that's
Indeed.
it. Advice.
It is good advice.
I can do it.
Steimer, any parting thoughts that you want to ask Naomi about
She's
your
I
gonna
deep
always
dark
ask Kyle that
secrets?
too on my Twitch streams. I'm always like, any final thoughts, Kyle? People like Kyle because of his beard.
Kyle's great.
Because he's amazing.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And
He
I
bought
love
me
that you call
breakfast.
yourselves the Kyles, because it's your last
We're
name and
called
his
the
first
Kyle
names.
Empire on our Twitch
Oh.
channel.
Oh.
That's even better.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, now I'm caught up. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a question for you, but I feel
Oh.
like this is because like I know you're just my
You know
bud,
me.
and I know you, and I love you, and I'm so proud of you.
Aww,
Thank
the
you.
warm and fuzzies. We have the
We're
warm
just
and
gonna hug it out
fuzzies.
here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Well, Naomi, thank you so much for
Thanks
coming
for
on the
having
show
me
with
on.
us and
Of
for
course.
chatting games and news and running us down your executive producer day. That was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
And where can people find you if they want to get in touch and watch your show or tweet to you?
Yeah.
Where are you at on the interwebs?
On the interwebs, I'm on twitter.com/Naomi Kyle. I'm on facebook.com/Naomi Kyle fans, and twitch.tv/Naomi Kyle, and instagram.com/the Naomi Kyle.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, that's me. Oh. You guys are all these to me.
That's great. So you heard it. Go follow her.
Yeah.
Watch her Twitch streams. They are very entertaining, and
Thank you.
maybe you'll get to see some poutine again in the future.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
And
poutine for sure.
we look forward to keeping tabs with you wherever you may go. And I'm gonna start watching The Fix more. I realized that I stopped watching it because
I used to watch your shows. Your
I-
daily.
I know,
What
because
were they called again?
I was the last
different
daily thing I
ones.
did was game trailers, GT
Game
News.
trailers, GT
Before that, it was
News, that's
Escapist
right.
News Now, and then before
Aw.
that, it was Clever Games. I also did Machinima's Inside Gaming Daily, and then I
Yes,
was on
remember that one.
Playboy's Gamer Next Door weekly. That was a once a week show. But yes,
Dang.
lots of videos. Sometimes when I tell people you could find thousands of videos of me on the internet, it doesn't really hit me
Do they
until
think that it's
But
porn?
it's not. You can search for it. Trust me.
It's
When
actually Vines.
when I do my Google searches of my, because I have Google alerts set up for my
Yeah.
names, like I see you guys looking.
She sees the
Go ahead.
completed, like Google search.
Go ahead, keep
term
trying.
of whatever it might be.
I think my favorite thing is that I think Veronica did this. Veronica Belmont. If you search like Veronica Belmont, bikini or Veronica Belmont, like anything risque, she made it so that like the top photo is her like with a piece of paper that says "you perv."
Oh, that's amazing.
See,
Yeah, that is
she's
amazing.
smarter than me. I didn't think of something that good.
So clever.
But if you guys want to keep up with what What's Good Games is doing, of course, we have what'sgoodgames.com. And if you want to get involved in the Patreon community, again, patreon.com/what'sgoodgames. Thank you so much to everybody for tuning in. We hope you have a fantastic weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye.